There are moments in life when something small interrupts our routine. You open the door, enter your home, and notice something unexpected. It might seem insignificant, yet it lingers in your mind. For a brief moment, your heart pauses, your thoughts slow down, and you begin to reflect. Islam teaches us that such moments are not meant to create fear or confusion, but awareness. They are gentle invitations to look inward rather than outward. Allah reminds us again and again that life is full of signs, but these signs are not meant to fuel superstition or anxiety. They are meant to soften the heart. When something unusual catches our attention, it is an opportunity to ask ourselves about our state with Allah, our gratitude, our trust, and our priorities. The Quran often calls us to reflect on what we witness, not to assign hidden meanings, but to grow in consciousness and humility. Many of us live on autopilot, rushing through responsibilities, worries, and expectations. A small disruption can quietly remind us that control was never truly in our hands. This is where Tawakkul finds its place. Trust in Allah does not mean overanalyzing events or fearing the unknown. It means returning the heart to calm certainty that nothing enters our lives without His knowledge, mercy, and wisdom. Islam teaches balance. We take practical steps, maintain cleanliness, protect our homes, and act responsibly while keeping our hearts free from unnecessary fear. At the same time, we renew gratitude for safety, shelter, and provision. Often such moments awaken repentance, sincerity, and a desire to realign our lives with what truly matters. They remind us that Barakah does not come from control but from consciousness. When approached with a sound heart, even the smallest moment can become a means of spiritual growth, not because of what appeared, but because of what awakened within us. A heart that turns back to Allah finds peace, clarity, and reassurance, even in the most unexpected pauses of life. When something unusual happens in our daily life, the first reaction of the heart is often discomfort. A person may feel unsettled, curious, or slightly anxious, especially when the event interrupts a familiar routine. Islam acknowledges this natural human response and does not deny emotion, but it teaches how that emotion should be guided. The key lesson is that unusual moments are not signals to panic or attach hidden meanings, but reminders to pause, reflect, and return to balance. A pause is powerful because it slows the heart down enough to think clearly, and clarity is always preferred over reaction in Islam. The Quran repeatedly calls people to reflect, to observe, and to think deeply about their experiences, but never encourages fear-driven interpretation. Allah invites reflection so the heart becomes more aware of its creator, not more suspicious of the world. When something unexpected happens, it creates a break in the flow of distraction. That break can either be filled with unnecessary fear or with mindful awareness. Islam directs the believer toward the second option. Panic narrows perception while reflection widens it. Panic pushes a person toward assumptions, while reflection pulls the heart back toward trust. In daily life, many people operate on autopilot, moving from task to task without awareness of their inner state. An unusual moment interrupts that automation. Islam teaches that such interruptions can be moments of mercy if they lead the heart back to consciousness of Allah. The Prophet emphasized calmness, balance, and wisdom in responding to situations. Reacting with fear or exaggeration was never encouraged. Instead, believers are taught to ground themselves in certainty that nothing occurs outside Allah's knowledge or permission. Pausing does not mean ignoring practical responsibility. Islam always maintains balance between spiritual awareness and worldly action. If something requires cleaning, fixing, or removal, it should be handled responsibly and calmly. But the heart should not jump to conclusions or symbolic interpretations. The lesson is not found in the object or event itself, but in the state of the heart when faced with it. A calm response reflects inner trust, while panic often reveals inner unrest that already existed. Reflection allows a person to ask gentle questions without accusation or fear. How present is my heart with Allah these days? Have I been grateful for the safety and shelter I have been given? Have I allowed worry, impatience, or heedlessness to take over my daily life? These questions are not meant to produce guilt, but awareness. Islam emphasizes self-accountability that leads to growth, not self-blame that leads to despair. Allah does not teach through superstition or hidden codes. He teaches through clarity, reminders, and inner awakening. The Quran describes signs as things that increase understanding, not confusion. When a believer pauses instead of panicking, they align themselves with this Qur'anic method. The pause creates space for remembrance, for saying the name of Allah, for grounding the heart in certainty rather than imagination. This is especially important in times when people are overwhelmed with information, rumors, and cultural myths that Islam clearly rejects. Fear-based thinking often comes from a desire to control outcomes. When something unexpected occurs, it challenges the illusion of control. Islam gently redirects this moment into tawakkul, reminding the believer that true security does not come from controlling every detail, but from trusting the one who controls all details. Trust does not remove responsibility, but it removes unnecessary fear. A trusting heart remains steady even when circumstances feel unfamiliar. Another wisdom in pausing is that it protects the believer from spiritual harm. Overreaction can lead to attributing meanings that Allah never intended, which slowly weakens reliance on authentic guidance. Islam safeguards the believer by anchoring interpretation in revelation, not imagination. Reflection guided by faith strengthens certainty, while panic guided by assumptions weakens it. When the heart pauses, gratitude often follows naturally. A person may realize that despite the unusual moment, they are still safe, sheltered, and protected. Gratitude transforms perspective. Instead of focusing on disruption, the heart focuses on blessings that remain constant. Gratitude is a form of remembrance, and remembrance stabilizes the heart. Allah promises that remembrance brings tranquility, and tranquility is the opposite of panic. Reflection also creates an opening for repentance, not because the event itself indicates wrongdoing, but because moments of awareness naturally soften the heart. When the heart softens, it becomes more willing to turn back to Allah, to seek forgiveness, and to realign intentions. This is one of the greatest benefits of pausing. Repentance in Islam is not triggered only by major events, but often by quiet realizations that life is fragile and guidance is precious. Pausing prevents the spread of fear to others as well. A calm believer becomes a source of reassurance for family members, especially children, who often mirror emotional responses. Islam places great importance on emotional stability within the home. A measured response teaches others that faith is not fragile and that trust in Allah produces calm rather than chaos. Ultimately, unusual moments reveal what already exists within the heart. They do not create fear, they expose it. They do not create trust, they reveal its depth. Islam uses these moments as mirrors, not messages of doom. A believer who learns to pause instead of panic develops emotional intelligence rooted in faith. Over time, this builds resilience, clarity, and spiritual maturity. Such moments also remind the believer that life is not meant to be lived mechanically. Awareness is a gift, and awareness often begins with interruption. When interruptions are met with calm reflection, they become doorways to deeper connection with Allah rather than sources of distress. The heart that learns to pause learns to listen, and the heart that listens grows in wisdom, balance, and peace when something unusual enters our home. The first lesson is often the simplest yet most profound. Every experience invites self-reflection and renewal of intention. In the busyness of daily life, the heart can become preoccupied with routine, distractions, and worldly concerns. A small unexpected occurrence, whether it is a sudden noise, an unfamiliar object, or a minor disruption, has the power to gently stop that routine and create a pause in the heart's automatic responses. Islam teaches that such pauses are moments of mercy, designed to encourage the believer to reflect inwardly, evaluate their state with Allah, and renew their intentions. These moments are not about superstition or assigning symbolic meanings to events, but about cultivating mindfulness, sincerity, and spiritual awareness. Self-reflection or muhasabah is a key principle in Islam. It is the process through which a believer examines the state of their heart, their actions, their intentions, and their relationship with Allah. An unexpected event at home, though outwardly mundane, can serve as a mirror reflecting the condition of the heart. For example, a person may realize in that moment how easily fear, anxiety, or impatience takes hold in minor disturbances. Islam emphasizes that these emotional responses are natural, but the heart should not be dominated by them. By turning inward and contemplating their own reactions, the believer is invited to practice patience, gratitude, and conscious reliance on Allah. Renewal of intention or niyah is closely connected to self-reflection. Every action in life carries an intention, whether it is as small as performing daily chores, offering salah, or maintaining household responsibilities. An unusual occurrence can remind the believer to ask themselves why they do what they do. Are they acting solely for the sake of Allah, or are their efforts motivated by pride or worldly gain? Islam teaches that actions performed with sincere intention carry far greater value in the eyes of Allah than countless outward deeds done without mindfulness. Therefore, these moments of disruption are opportunities to realign intentions and purify the heart. ensuring that every action is rooted in sincerity and awareness of divine presence. The Quran repeatedly encourages reflection on the signs and experiences Allah places before us. Surah Al-Baqarah's 229 reminds believers to consider both the apparent and hidden lessons in life, showing that contemplation and insight are integral to faith. In practical terms, a moment that initially seems trivial, an unexpected animal, an object falling, or even a strange sound, becomes a gentle invitation to pause and examine the self. What is the state of my patience? Have I been neglectful in gratitude or trust? How present is my heart with Allah during daily routines? Such questions foster a deeper awareness that life is not merely a series of events to endure, but opportunities for spiritual growth and self-correction. Moments of reflection also cultivate emotional intelligence, which is highly valued in Islam. The Prophet taught that a balanced heart, one that responds to life with calmness and thoughtfulness, is a sign of spiritual maturity. When unusual events occur, they allow the believer to practice measured responses rather than impulsive reactions. By observing their emotions without judgment, the believer strengthens their ability to remain composed, exercise patience, and maintain clarity. This form of self-regulation is a reflection of reliance on Allah, or Tawakkul, which does not mean passivity, but rather conscious engagement with life, while trusting the outcomes to Allah. Furthermore, reflection encourages humility. When the heart is confronted with unexpected situations, it is reminded that control is never absolute. No matter how well one plans, unforeseen events can occur. Islam teaches that true reliance on Allah involves acknowledging human limitations and recognizing that every outcome ultimately belongs to Him. The process of self-reflection ensures that the heart does not slip into arrogance or self-reliance. Instead, it learns to recognize the wisdom behind what might initially seem disruptive or inconvenient. Renewing intention and reflecting on one's state also prepares the believer for ethical action. Islam emphasizes that inner awareness should translate into outer conduct. A calm and reflective heart responds appropriately. It ensures the home remains clean and organized. It addresses problems with practical solutions, and it avoids fear-driven exaggeration or superstition. For instance, a believer may calmly remove the unusual object, check their environment for safety, or seek guidance in maintaining cleanliness and order, all while keeping the heart connected to Allah. In this way, the moment of reflection transforms a potentially disruptive event into an opportunity for mindful, ethical action aligned with Islamic principles. Self-reflection and renewal of intention also reinforce the habit of gratitude. Islam consistently emphasizes gratitude as a powerful tool to maintain inner peace and spiritual awareness. An unusual event, when reflected upon properly, can reveal how many blessings remain constant: the safety of the home, the health of family members, the provision of sustenance, and the protection of Allah. The heart naturally gravitates toward gratitude when it pauses and considers these enduring blessings. Gratitude in turn cultivates contentment, reduces fear, and strengthens reliance on Allah's wisdom in every aspect of life. Such moments also serve as gentle reminders for repentance. They awaken the heart to consider its shortcomings not as a source of shame, but as opportunities to return to Allah. Reflecting on the heart's response to disruption can reveal areas where impatience, neglect, or heedlessness have entered daily practice. Islam teaches that repentance softens the heart, renews sincerity, and strengthens spiritual resilience. Each unusual occurrence thus becomes an instrument of mercy, guiding the believer toward a closer relationship with Allah and a clear understanding of their inner state. Moreover, self-reflection nurtures long-term spiritual growth. Repeated practice of pausing, evaluating, and renewing intention during unexpected moments strengthens the heart over time. It develops resilience against anxiety, reduces the grip of fear or superstition, and enhances the believer's ability to navigate life with patience and wisdom. By integrating reflection and intentionality into daily life, believers build a framework for spiritual maturity that transforms ordinary moments into lessons and unusual events into opportunities for growth. In conclusion, Islam presents unusual moments not as threats or omens, but as invitations for inward reflection and renewal. When something unexpected occurs in the home, the believer is called to pause, examine their emotions, intentions, and state of consciousness, and realign their heart with Allah. Through reflection, the heart cultivates patience, gratitude, ethical conduct, humility, and spiritual awareness. The value of these moments lies not in the object, sound, or event itself, but in the response it elicits, a response grounded in sincerity, trust, and mindful engagement with life and the divine. When something unusual enters a home, it may initially draw attention because it breaks the rhythm of daily life. In Islam, such occurrences are not viewed as random coincidences or signs of bad fortune. Rather, they are opportunities for the believer to reflect on the wisdom and guidance that Allah embeds in everyday experiences. The third key point, that Allah teaches awareness through ordinary events and not through superstition, is central to understanding the Islamic perspective on these moments. It reminds the believer that guidance and lessons are found in mindfulness, reflection, and sincerity, rather than in assigning arbitrary meanings or following cultural myths that have no basis in the Quran or Sunnah. Human beings are naturally inclined to search for patterns and explanations. When something unexpected appears in a home, the mind may be tempted to interpret it in exaggerated or unverified ways, sometimes even attaching mystical or superstitious significance. Islam, however, strongly discourages such behavior. The Quran emphasizes reliance on authentic knowledge and reflection. In Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah reminds believers not to act on assumptions without verification. The heart that seeks understanding through reflection, prayer, and consultation with authentic knowledge is safeguarded against error, fear, and misguided interpretation. This principle is vital because it protects the believer from unnecessary anxiety and maintains clarity in spiritual and daily life. Awareness in this context means being present with what is happening rather than reacting impulsively or relying on conjecture. The Prophet consistently modeled this behavior, responding to events calmly and deliberately while grounding his actions in faith, wisdom, and ethical conduct. Muslims are encouraged to emulate this approach. If an unusual occurrence arises, whether it is a sudden noise, an unfamiliar object, or something out of place, it is an opportunity to examine the immediate reality without attaching unverified spiritual meanings. Awareness helps the heart remain grounded in truth, fostering trust in Allah and strengthening patience. The educational aspect of these ordinary events lies in what they reveal about the inner state of the heart. An unexpected incident often triggers reactions of curiosity, surprise, or mild discomfort. How a believer responds reflects the level of their mindfulness, patience, and reliance on Allah. A heart that is constantly aware of Allah's presence, seeking His guidance, and remaining conscious of His wisdom will naturally respond with calmness rather than fear. The moment, although outwardly mundane, becomes a lesson in self-regulation, trust, and presence. Islam teaches that wisdom is embedded in the patterns of creation and in the sequence of everyday events. Every occurrence, ordinary or unusual, can serve as a reminder of Allah's comprehensive knowledge, mercy, and design. For instance, the Quran in Surah Al-Barakah emphasizes reflection on the signs in creation, highlighting that contemplation strengthens faith. The ordinary experiences that interrupt routine, therefore, are not meant to frighten or confuse, but to invite a closer examination of the relationship between the heart and Allah. Through careful reflection, the believer learns to discern lessons in experience without relying on superstition or cultural myths. A key component of this awareness is understanding the difference between natural causality and imagined meaning. Something unusual in a home may be the result of simple natural causes, a draft, an animal entering accidentally, or an object shifting. Islam encourages seeking practical, lawful explanations while maintaining a conscious heart. For example, taking appropriate precautions, maintaining cleanliness, and organizing the environment are practical responses rooted in ethics, not fear or superstition. At the same time, the believer's awareness is elevated through prayer, remembrance of Allah, and reflection on personal behavior and state of heart. Developing this awareness also strengthens ethical and spiritual growth. When a believer does not attach superstition to every unusual event, the heart remains free from baseless fear, which allows for a more measured and sincere engagement with Allah. Patience and calm reflection become habitual responses. These traits are essential in Islam because they prepare the believer for both spiritual and worldly challenges. By cultivating a heart that observes events mindfully and responds with reliance on Allah, one develops a stable emotional and spiritual state capable of navigating life's uncertainties without falling into fear or obsession. Ordinary events, when viewed through the lens of awareness, also reinforce humility. They remind the believer that control is limited and that Allah's knowledge encompasses all things. Awareness through observation fosters gratitude for the protection, guidance, and mercy that surround daily life. A sudden disturbance or unfamiliar occurrence in the home serves as a gentle nudge to consider what has been taken for granted. The safety of the home, the health of family members, and the continued sustenance provided by Allah. Reflection on these blessings nurtures contentment and strengthens reliance on Allah's wisdom. Furthermore, awareness cultivated through ordinary experiences encourages the believer to renew intentions and sincerity. Islam emphasizes that even the smallest acts, when performed with mindful intention, carry great reward. A home carefully maintained, a family protected, and a heart that pauses to reflect all embody sincere effort aligned with faith. When unusual events occur, they offer an opportunity to realign intentions, ensuring that actions are not driven by fear, habit, or superstition, but by conscious obedience to Allah and care for the well-being of one's environment. Finally, embracing awareness in ordinary events fosters long-term spiritual resilience. Each incident that interrupts routine, when approached with reflection and mindfulness, reinforces patience, trust, and ethical action. The believer learns that lessons from Allah are not always dramatic or extraordinary. Sometimes they are quiet, subtle, and embedded in daily life. Through this perspective, the heart is continuously trained to respond with wisdom, gratitude, and calm, transforming seemingly mundane or unusual occurrences into instruments of growth, spiritual clarity, and connection with Allah. By understanding that Allah teaches awareness through ordinary events, a believer is empowered to navigate life with balance. Each unexpected moment becomes an invitation to strengthen mindfulness, renew intention, cultivate patience, and grow in trust and gratitude. This approach ensures that faith remains grounded in truth, free from superstition, and fully aligned with the principles of Islam, enabling the heart to remain tranquil, alert, and spiritually attuned. When unusual events occur, the fourth key point emphasizes that a calm heart responds with trust, gratitude, and balance. In life, many people experience minor disruptions, unexpected situations, or strange occurrences that can momentarily unsettle the mind. These events, although outwardly simple, often trigger emotional reactions, surprise, worry, or curiosity. Islam teaches that the manner in which we respond to such events reveals the state of our heart. A heart grounded in trust, gratitude, and balance transforms these moments into opportunities for spiritual growth rather than anxiety or superstition. The believer is encouraged to develop composure, maintain clarity, and respond in a way that strengthens their connection with Allah while preserving inner peace. Trust in Allah, or tawakkul, is central to this principle. Trust does not imply inaction or passivity. Rather, it means taking responsible steps in the world while remaining confident that ultimate outcomes are in the hands of Allah. When something unusual happens, the heart may instinctively search for explanations, sometimes imagining worst-case scenarios. Islam teaches that a heart practicing tawakkul responds by calmly assessing the situation, taking necessary action if needed, and then placing the result in Allah's hands. This approach prevents fear or panic from dominating the mind and ensures that actions remain measured, thoughtful, and guided by faith. Trust, therefore, is both an emotional and practical anchor, allowing the believer to act wisely without being overwhelmed by uncertainty. Gratitude, or shukr, is another essential component of a calm response. Even minor disruptions remind us that life is constantly unfolding in ways beyond our control. By cultivating gratitude, the heart focuses not on what is unknown or uncomfortable, but on what is present and secure. This might include recognizing the safety of the home, the provision of sustenance, or the protection of family and loved ones. Gratitude stabilizes the heart, transforming potential anxiety into awareness of Allah's mercy and care. It is through this lens of shukr that ordinary experiences, even unusual ones, become sources of reflection and spiritual nourishment. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes that remembrance and gratitude bring peace to the heart, illustrating that a mindful, thankful heart finds balance in all circumstances. Balance is the third pillar of this approach. Islam encourages moderation in both emotions and actions. Overreacting to a minor incident, assigning excessive meaning to it, or succumbing to fear disrupts inner equilibrium and spiritual clarity. A balanced heart recognizes that not every event carries a hidden message or requires immediate emotional escalation. By maintaining calm and thoughtful composure, the believer ensures that actions and reflections remain aligned with Islamic ethics. For example, taking steps to secure one's home, checking safety, or performing practical tasks in response to an unusual occurrence reflects responsible balance between worldly duties and spiritual awareness. The heart remains grounded, neither neglecting reality nor exaggerating its significance. A calm heart also protects the believer from superstition and misinformation. In many societies, unusual events are often misinterpreted through cultural myths or speculative beliefs. Islam explicitly cautions against such practices, emphasizing that knowledge and reflection should guide response. By maintaining composure, the believer avoids these pitfalls, instead using the moment to strengthen awareness, ethical behavior, and reliance on Allah. The heart learns that the true lesson is not in the object, sound, or event itself, but in the attitude, patience, and understanding cultivated in response. This perspective nurtures clarity, reduces fear, and builds resilience against undue anxiety. The concept of trust, gratitude, and balance also intersects with ethical responsibility. Islam teaches that inner calm should translate into outwardly appropriate behavior. A believer who encounters something unusual should respond responsibly, ensuring cleanliness, taking precautions, and maintaining safety without exaggeration or superstition. Simultaneously, the heart remains engaged with Allah through reflection, remembrance, and mindful intention. This integration of spiritual awareness with practical action is a hallmark of a balanced, mature faith. It demonstrates that a calm heart is not passive, but actively engaged in maintaining harmony between worldly duties and spiritual mindfulness. Reflection during such moments enhances emotional intelligence. The Prophet exemplified composure and measured responses in daily life. Believers are encouraged to emulate this approach, understanding that emotional regulation is not a sign of weakness but of spiritual maturity. When faced with minor disturbances, a calm heart assesses the situation, recognizes the limits of human control, and turns to Allah for guidance. This process strengthens the ability to navigate not only unexpected home events, but also broader life challenges with patience, clarity, and composure. Trust, gratitude, and balance also cultivate humility. When unusual events occur, they remind the believer that control is limited and life is largely dependent on Allah's wisdom. A calm heart acknowledges this reality, reducing arrogance, impatience, or unrealistic expectations. Awareness of divine wisdom fosters humility, which in turn nurtures ethical decision-making, patience, and spiritual resilience. The believer learns that peace and satisfaction are not found in controlling every detail, but in aligning one's heart with divine guidance and maintaining equilibrium in thought, emotion, and action. Moreover, cultivating a calm response strengthens faith in divine timing. Islam teaches that Allah's wisdom governs all occurrences and that every event, however small, fits into a broader plan. By responding with trust and balance, the believer internalizes this principle, recognizing that disruptions are not random threats but reminders of divine oversight. Gratitude reinforces this understanding, highlighting the blessings that remain consistent despite momentary disturbances. Together, trust, gratitude, and balance create a heart that remains anchored in faith, capable of embracing life's uncertainties with serenity. A calm, reflective heart also fosters communal and familial stability. When a minor disruption occurs at home, children, spouses, or family members often mirror the emotional response of the adult. Responding with composure and mindfulness teaches others that faith produces calm rather than panic, and that reliance on Allah brings clarity and reassurance. This not only protects the individual's spiritual state, but also contributes positively to the emotional and spiritual atmosphere of the home. Finally, a calm heart that embodies trust, gratitude, and balance develops long-term resilience. Regular practice of pausing, reflecting, and responding thoughtfully transforms unusual occurrences into opportunities for spiritual and emotional growth. Over time, the believer strengthens their ability to maintain equilibrium, avoid superstition, navigate uncertainty, and remain mindful of Allah's presence in daily life. This resilience, rooted in faith, becomes a guiding principle that influences responses not only to minor disruptions at home, but to broader challenges in life, reinforcing spiritual maturity, ethical conduct, and heartfelt connection with Allah. By cultivating trust, gratitude, and balance, the believer transforms unusual events from sources of anxiety into lessons of spiritual awareness and growth. These principles ensure that the heart remains grounded, responsive, and connected to Allah while maintaining clarity, ethical responsibility, and emotional stability. A calm response reflects not weakness, but a heart refined by faith, capable of embracing life's uncertainties with serenity, mindfulness, and inner peace. The fifth key point emphasizes that unusual events in our lives, even minor ones that may initially seem insignificant, serve as reminders for the believer to cultivate gratitude, reflection, and a conscious connection with Allah. When something unexpected enters our home, it disrupts the ordinary flow of life, offering a unique opportunity for the heart to pause and recognize both the blessings that are constantly present and the responsibilities we have toward ourselves, our families, and our environment. Islam teaches that these moments, rather than being a source of fear or superstition, are invitations to deepen awareness, enhance mindfulness, and renew our understanding of the divine wisdom that governs all things. Gratitude or shukr is central to this process. The Quran repeatedly reminds believers that acknowledging Allah's blessings brings peace to the heart and opens pathways to further mercy. Surah Ibrahim 14:7 illustrates that when we are grateful, Allah multiplies His favors upon us. In practical terms, an unusual occurrence in the home, perhaps a stray object falling, a sudden noise, or an unexpected sight, can prompt the believer to take stock of what is constant. The safety of family members, the sustenance provided, the shelter of the home, and the quiet protection of Allah that is often taken for granted. This pause, coupled with reflection, allows the heart to experience a sense of contentment and stability that is not dependent on external circumstances. Reflection is also crucial. Islam emphasizes muhasabah, the practice of examining the heart and intentions, as a means to grow spiritually and ethically. When confronted with an unusual event, a believer is encouraged to ask questions such as, how have I been treating the blessings I already have? Am I maintaining a sincere relationship with Allah in my daily actions? And do I allow minor disturbances to disrupt my spiritual focus? These questions foster a heightened sense of self-awareness, reinforcing the understanding that life is composed of interconnected moments that carry lessons if approached thoughtfully. Moreover, such events remind the believer of the limits of human control. Islam teaches that the universe operates under divine wisdom, and while humans can take practical measures, ultimate outcomes rest in Allah's hands. A sudden occurrence at home serves as a tangible reminder that despite planning and effort, some aspects of life remain outside our control. This acknowledgement encourages humility and patience, both essential qualities for spiritual maturity. It prevents the heart from slipping into anxiety or frustration over things beyond one's capacity to manage. By grounding the response in faith, the believer learns to navigate unexpected situations with calmness and trust. Unusual events also offer the opportunity to cultivate ethical behavior. Islam emphasizes that inner awareness should translate into responsible action. For instance, if a strange object appears in the home, the believer might ensure cleanliness, maintain order, or take preventive measures without panic or superstition. These practical steps, combined with mindful reflection and gratitude, demonstrate a balance between spiritual mindfulness and ethical worldly conduct. The heart is trained to respond in ways that are measured, ethical, and consistent with Islamic principles, turning what might have been a minor disruption into a teaching moment. Another important aspect is the reinforcement of patience, or sabr. Minor disturbances, when met with reflection, can serve as small exercises in emotional regulation. Islam emphasizes patience not only in major trials, but also in daily life. Each minor challenge is an opportunity to practice patience, develop resilience, and strengthen reliance on Allah. Over time, these repeated experiences condition the heart to remain composed, fostering a deep and enduring sense of spiritual stability. The experience also encourages the believer to renew intentions or niyyah in daily actions. Islam teaches that every action gains significance when performed with sincerity for Allah. An unexpected incident reminds the heart to assess whether actions are done with consciousness and mindfulness or merely as a routine. Realigning intentions ensures that mundane actions, from household responsibilities to acts of worship, are performed with greater presence and devotion, turning ordinary moments into acts of spiritual cultivation. Furthermore, these experiences help the believer develop long-term spiritual awareness. By consistently approaching unusual events with gratitude, reflection, patience, and ethical action, the heart becomes attuned to the subtle signs of Allah's guidance in daily life. The believer learns to see lessons in small occurrences, strengthening the capacity to maintain mindfulness, composure, and a sense of divine connection in all circumstances. This cultivation of awareness ensures that life's ordinary moments are transformed into spiritual opportunities, enhancing emotional resilience and ethical clarity. The impact of practicing gratitude and reflection during minor disruptions extends beyond the individual. It creates a positive environment for family and community members. Children and loved ones observe responses to unexpected situations and learn to emulate patience, trust in Allah, and ethical behavior. A home or environment in which events are met with composure and mindfulness becomes a space of spiritual and emotional stability, reinforcing values of faith and reflection in daily life. Ultimately, the fifth key point teaches that the significance of unusual events lies not in the object, sound, or disruption itself, but in the heart's response. Islam emphasizes that mindfulness, gratitude, ethical action, and reflection transform minor disturbances into instruments of spiritual growth. By cultivating these qualities, the believer strengthens trust in Allah, develops resilience, enhances self-awareness, and fosters a sincere connection with the divine. Over time, this approach equips the heart to navigate life's uncertainties with patience, clarity, and contentment, making each small experience a source of learning, growth, and spiritual enrichment. Through consistent practice, the believer internalizes the principle that every moment, even those that initially seem unusual or disruptive, carries potential for spiritual and ethical development. Gratitude, reflection, patience, and intentional action ensure that the heart remains attuned to Allah's guidance, grounded in ethical behavior, and prepared to derive lessons from all experiences. In this way, the believer's daily life becomes a continuous journey of mindful awareness, ethical responsiveness, and heartfelt connection with the divine, allowing even minor events to nurture growth, spiritual clarity, and emotional resilience.